Have you ever stopped to think if the race to colonize Mars is really about the future of humanity? Or if there's something much darker behind it? What if I told you that a former Spacex employee died and came back with a revelation straight from Jesus about what Elon Musk is up to? Really trying to do something outside of Earth? In this video, you will hear the explosive story of Travis McCoy, who died in a mysterious accident in the desert and woke up before the Creator's throne, where he discovered that the mission to Mars is not salvation, it's escape. Escape from what? Watch until the end, and prepare yourself for the most shocking truth you've ever heard. If this content impacts you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, and tell me here in the comments, which city are you watching this video from? Let's spread this message all over the world. My name is Travis McCoy. I'm 34 years old, and I live in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. I was just a freelance programmer, nothing special, or so I thought. My most recent job was with a SpaceX-affiliated contractor. It was a temporary digital remote contract. I was given encrypted code to develop software to simulate Martian environments. I'd never met Elon Musk in person. I'd never even set foot on a base. But something about that project gave me the creeps. In the last week before everything happened, I started having strange dreams. The kind of dreams that make you wake up with your heart racing and a cold sweat on the back of your neck. Rockets exploding, underground cities on Mars, children trapped in glass capsules, and always, in the background of it all, the same figure, Elon, smiling, watching. The night I died, I was driving alone on a deserted road between Roswell and Las Cruces. I had gone to visit my sick mother and was on my way home. For some reason, I felt compelled to take a detour, a dirt road I had never noticed before. It was as if something was calling to me. I can't explain it. That's where it happened. A blinding light appeared in the sky. At first I thought it was a military drone. Then I thought it was a meteor. But as the light spiraled down in front of me, I realized it wasn't human at all. My car spun off the road and rolled 3 times. The world spun. The windshield shattered. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I couldn't feel my body. I was hovering above the wreckage. I could see my head slumped against the steering wheel, blood dripping from my mouth. And I saw something behind the car, a translucent silhouette, watching. It was at that moment that a presence took over everything. Time stopped, the air changed, and he appeared. Yes, Jesus, with eyes that spanned galaxies. He called me by name, Travis. His voice was not sound, it was vibration, pure truth. And then he said to me, "They're not running because of climate change. They're not running because of science. Travis, what? You'll see why." And what he showed me next was the darkest secret of the space race. Jesus reached out his hand, and the moment I touched it, we were transported to a place I cannot describe in ordinary words. It was like an amphitheater suspended in space, with windows opening onto living nebulae and stars pulsing like hearts. And there, right in the center, was a huge, circular table made of a dark substance that seemed to absorb the light. Around this table, 12 beings were seated. Some looked human, CEOs, politicians, generals. I recognized famous faces, a former president, a tech mogul, a figure who looked a lot like Elon Musk. But the others, they weren't human. They had eyes like abysses, poreless skin, and a coldness that chilled your soul just to look at them. Jesus whispered, "This is the Council of Escape." They were discussing with surgical precision the next phase of Mars colonization. But none of it was about exploration or saving humanity. It was about spiritual evacuation. It was about escaping from what they called the arrival. One of the non-human beings stood up and spoke in a metallic voice. "The collective consciousness of the earth is awakening. The veil is being torn. We must migrate before the word materializes." Another replied, with an ironic smile, "The herd still believes in Elon. He will be our key to the final transport. He is the carrier." "The bearer of what?" I asked mentally. Jesus answered, without moving his lips, "Of a seed, not of salvation, but of future domination." Then I understood. Elon was not the Messiah of technology. He was instrument, used, manipulated, perhaps even enchanted. Someone who, in his ambition and thirst to surpass the limits of humanity, had become a fundamental piece in the fallen's plan. They wanted Mars not as a new home, but as a fortress against the return of the king. Jesus then showed me images, underground facilities being built with autonomous robots. Even before any official announcement, cryogenic compartments, virtual reality rooms for mind control, and codes that I myself had helped to program, used to test the compatibility of frequencies with human consciousness. I was shaking. You were chosen, Travis, because you helped build what they will use to imprison souls. My knees gave way. Even without a body, I fell into tears. But Jesus lifted me up. They forgot one thing. There is no place in the universe where truth cannot shine, not even Mars. After the council dissolved into shadows and silence, Jesus took me even deeper into revelation. This time, we landed, or rather, emerged, into a sterile, subterranean environment, red as rust but clean as an operating room. It was Mars, but not the Mars of the documentaries. It was the hidden Mars, the one that no one outside the circle knows about. There, I saw endless corridors, tubes with amber liquids, and what appeared to be people, or rather, bodies, some whole, others in formation, and all connected to machines that emitted constant signals, like digital heartbeats. Clones? I asked, a lump in my throat. Jesus nodded slowly. They are trying to create perfect carriers, genetic blends of specific bloodlines with malleable psychic structures. They want bodies to inhabit, bodies that will not reject their influence. Each prototype had a seal on its capsule. I saw coded names, acronyms, and to my horror, I recognized one of them, TRV-334. It was my employee code in the simulation project. My stomach turned. My code was being used to generate something, or someone, something that looked human but wasn't, something that I had somehow helped build. It was like my soul being ripped from ignorance. They're already on Mars, Travis. They never needed your permission, but they did need your unconscious cooperation. Jesus then passed his hand in front of me and showed me quick flashes of light, a group of children being trained in virtual reality for scientific missions. A secret speech from Elon to a closed circle. Earth is spiritually bankrupt. Mars will be a new beginning for the chosen ones. A ceremony, dark, ritualistic, where something was consecrated, not to God, but to the silence among the stars. I wanted to scream, to run, to vomit, but there was no body, only consciousness and pain. They think they can build an interplanetary Tower of Babel, but they don't understand that the universe has an owner, said Jesus firmly. At that moment, an idea cut through me like a blade. What if the colonists on the first mission are not fully human? What if the new civilization on Mars is not a colony, but a replacement? It was then that Jesus looked straight into my eyes and said, "They want to become gods, but they have forgotten the one true God, and because of that, they will fall. But first, you will return. You need to know who he really is." These words from Jesus echoed through me like a soft thunderclap. Then everything around me changed again, as if I were being pulled by a tide of light, passing through galaxies and memories that were not my own. Suddenly, I was in a modern auditorium, a minimalist stage, white lights, an audience in reverent silence. In the center, there he was, Elon Musk. He spoke calmly about plans to transform Mars into the first self-sustaining multiplanetary civilization. But Jesus made me see beyond the talk. His every word was like a code, and behind him, there were shadows, literally shadows with eyes, like parasites attached to his spiritual body. He believes he is leading a movement of human salvation, Jesus explained, but he was seduced by voices that do not come from the light. I was thrown back into another moment in time, a private meeting. Elon was standing before a strange artifact, a sort of technological monolith with symbols that were not human. A tall, slender being, shrouded in a hazy light, extended a hand toward him, and Elon took it, without hesitation. He was chosen by them because of his ambition, said Jesus, but also for your pain. The enemy does not choose the weak, he chooses the hungry, and promises them worlds. Then I saw flashes of Elon's past, unresolved trauma, isolation, thirst for control, and how all of this had been used to construct the illusion that he was a technological messiah. He's not the villain, but he's the vehicle. It was then that Jesus showed me something that chilled me to the core. A contract, a spiritual one, a pact made in words that were not of this world. Elon had been sealed as the opener of portals, Not in the physical sense, but in the spiritual sense. He would be the one responsible for creating the pathway, the bridge, between Earth and the new domain, Mars. But what would come this way was not human. When the first colony is established, the door will be opened. These words burned in the stone before the council throne, engraved in unquenchable fire. Jesus then turned to me, his eyes full of grief and urgency. You have seen the man. Now you must see the spirit that hides behind the plan. And that's when the real horror began. In the blink of an eye, the scenery changed once more. The ground disappeared. We were floating in a space where time did not exist. Around us, translucent spheres slowly rotated, each containing moments in human history, wars, inventions, towers falling, rockets rising. It was then that I saw them. They manifested as dark lights, not ordinary darkness, but inverted lights, as if they sucked the soul instead of illuminating it. They were the architects, the true masterminds of Mars' plan, and they were not of flesh. They were not of pure spirit. They were leftovers. They are the fallen, said Jesus with pain in his voice. Ancient, forgotten, but still active. They have infiltrated where men think they have the greatest dominance. Science, technology, power. These entities, it was revealed to me, had influenced every evolutionary leap of humanity with one goal in mind: to take us off Earth. Not to expand, but to move us away from the truth. And Mars was the pinnacle of this plan. They had manipulated brilliant minds over the centuries, presenting the idea of colonizing other worlds as the next natural step, the inevitable destiny of the human race. But it was all an act, an intergalactic theater, and Elon was the unwitting protagonist. Jesus showed how the fallen whispered codes in dreams, how they inspired inventions, how they interfered with algorithms to direct the right data to the right minds, and how even I, Travis, had been touched by these suggestions while programming. It's no coincidence that you're here now, he said. You saw the code, you saw the pattern. Now you will see the cycle. And then something was revealed to me that took my breath away. Mars had been inhabited before, an ancient, glorious, technologically advanced, but spiritually corrupt civilization. They too believed they could escape the judgment. They too followed the fallen. They too built portals, shields, weapons, and they failed. What was left of Mars was not just dust. It was the echo of a rebellion. They are trying to repeat the same plan, Jesus said in a firm voice, but now using humanity as a shield, as a vehicle, as a ladder. I saw visions of men and women boarding ships full of hope, but in the spiritual plane, they were surrounded by chains, driven like cattle, believing they were freeing themselves when, in fact, they were being taken to the deepest captivity in the universe, the captivity of lies. And that's why you're coming back, Travis. After the revelation of the fallen, I felt small, tiny in the face of the cosmic grandeur and the invisible battle that had been unfolding for millennia. But Jesus did not let me fall into despair. He held me, and together we were carried into what seemed like the future, a future that has not yet happened, but that vibrates like a wave about to break. I saw the sky open up, literally, like a torn veil. Earth's atmosphere was cut through by a light so intense it made the stars appear pale, and from it emerged him, mounted on something that was neither horse nor ship, but a moving throne, a glorious presence that crushed the space around it simply by existing. It was the King Jesus, not as the gentle lamb, but as the lion, the commander, the righteous judge, and behind him, legions, not of angels with harps, but warriors of pure light, wielding swords made of promises kept. And then I saw Mars. At that moment, there was already a colony, small, but real, with domes, flags, a new constitution. Those who were there looked at Earth with contempt. We leave the old humanity behind. But Jesus showed me what they couldn't see. The spiritual structures around the red planet, black energetic currents, like tentacles, trapped in large crystals hidden in the Martian subsoil. They were seals. Seals made by the fallen to try to prevent the king's arrival in that new territory. And then I heard the phrase that burned my soul. They think I can be stopped by atmosphere, by distance, by gravity. And he laughed. But it was a laugh that made the universe tremble. One by one, the seals began to crack, and there, on Mars, a war began, not with human weapons, but with frequencies. The souls of the colonists, the innocent ones, began to wake up, to remember, to pray. Some turned against their leaders, others fell to their knees, and the colony began to crumble. Spiritually, I saw Elon looking up at the sky, desperate, silent. His eyes saw what he never imagined possible, the coming of the one he had tried to avoid. And it was there that Jesus said to me, "You, Travis, will be the trumpet. You will wake those who still sleep." "But how?" I asked, my heart on fire, telling what he saw, with courage, with truth, and with urgency, because the clock is already ticking, and the next launch is the most dangerous of all. After the king showed me what was to come, we descended again, but not to Earth, nor to Mars. It was a room that seemed alive. The walls pulsed like a brain. Thousands of lines of code floated around us, intertwined with sounds, images, and intentions. I recognized it immediately. Were algorithms, many of which I myself had helped to build. "Welcome to the matrix of lies," said Jesus with a serious look. In that place, all the ideas implanted in humanity through technology were being organized. I saw how certain data was amplified while others were suppressed, how videos, surveys, words and emotions were manipulated to prepare people for accept cosmic exile as salvation. Elon didn't write that code alone. Fallen entities, intelligent, cunning, ancient, whispered into the ears of engineers like me. Small suggestions, small deviations, keywords hidden in lines of code that seemed innocent but carried vibrations of submission, fear, pride. I saw my own code there, a piece of code I created one morning, thinking it was just to optimize a simulation of atmospheres on Mars. But there, in that spiritual environment, it turned into a spiritual submission command, part of a much larger set. "They are preparing a new digital Tower of Babel," said Jesus, "but now not to reach heaven, but to hide from him." I saw how everything was interconnected: social networks, launch systems, neural encryption, even video games and augmented reality platforms, all part of an architecture that would culminate in the global acceptance of the Mars plan, not as an adventure, but as a false redemption. And then Jesus showed me the final line of code. It was like a password hidden behind layers of encryption. He only let me see it for a second, but it was enough. It was a warning. "He who flee will be found. He who hide the truth will be forcibly awakened." My heart raced. It wasn't a threat. It was a prophecy. Jesus then turned to me and said, "You carry this code now. It is within you, but not to be deciphered by machines, but by hearts. Every person who hears your testimony, if they have ears to hear, will receive the same warning." "And what happens to those who reject it?" I asked. He looked at me sadly. "You will see the colony being born, and you will see the fall begin from within." Jesus' presence then led me to one last scenario, something between a dream and a decree. We were above planet Earth, and below us, lights were coming on in isolated spots. Simple homes, humble churches, shacks in forgotten regions. These lights, I understood, were awakened hearts. People who already knew, even without proof, that there was something wrong with the plan to colonize Mars. I saw prayer groups meeting in silence, crying out for revelation. I saw children having visions. I saw honest scientists being fired for questioning absurd orders. And I saw something even more powerful, a spiritual fire line connecting them all, invisible to human eyes, but indestructible. "These are the chosen ones," said Jesus. "They will not be taken. They will not bow to the red plan." "Red plan?" I repeated. Jesus explained. Just as Egypt had its magicians and Pharaoh had his plan, Mars would become the new symbol of human arrogance. The red land promised a new freedom, but in reality, it would be a prison, a technological Babylon built on cosmic sand. But not everyone would go. There would be those who would resist, those who, even when tempted with offers of long life, integrated artificial intelligence, transhuman evolution, would choose to stay, and not out of fear, but out of fidelity to the Creator. And then he showed me something I will never forget: a Martian station, years in the future, an internal crisis, leaders in panic, communications cut off with Earth, and in the midst of the chaos, someone standing up, to pray. Prayer was like a flashbulb. It broke through the artificial atmosphere and created a breach. And through that breach, something entered, the presence of the Almighty. "They won't be able to keep the door closed, Travis," said Jesus, "not even on Mars. Because where there is true cry, there is my answer." I saw then that my mission was not just to warn, it was to activate. Each testimony of mine would be a spark, each video, a seed. And some of these seeds would germinate right there on Martian soil, because some would be taken, but not defeated. Some of my people will be taken by force, but there they will call on me, and through them the plan will be broken. Jesus looked at me, and his eyes were filled with flames and tears at the same time. "You will not return to convince the whole world, but you will return to awaken those who are mine." After the vision of the chosen, Jesus took me to the threshold. It was a place that seemed to exist in no time at all. No past, no future, no present. Only the eternal now, and there was the door, the final boundary between what I had seen and the world to which I was to return. It was simple, made of old wood, with gold hardware, but it radiated an energy that paralyzed me. On the other side, I saw flashes, my hospital bed, machines beeping, faces of distress all around me. I saw my mother, crying and praying. I saw my laptop still open with the final code. It all waited for me. Jesus stood between me and the door. His eyes were more serious than ever. "You need to understand what will happen if you cross paths." "I know." To answer, "No one will believe me." He nodded. "You will be called crazy, conspiracy theorist, heretic. People who love you will turn away. The doors the world has opened for you will close." My heart began to race. Fear, insecurity. But he continued, "And yet, you will be heard. Because the truth doesn't need to be shouted to be felt." I stared at him. "What if I stay?" He took a deep breath, with the calm of someone who rules galaxies. "You will be at peace, but the mission will be passed on to someone else, and he will suffer more. Because you saw it, you know, and now, you are responsible." The words tore at me inside, not out of guilt, but out of a sense of calling, of urgency, of purpose that no human success could replace. Jesus then placed his hand on my chest, and something glowed, a fragment of code, of light, of living word. "This is the seal of testimony. It will burn when you are silent, and it will pulse when you speak." "And what about Elon?" I asked in a whisper. "Pray for him. He is an instrument, not a source." He was also deceived. I looked one last time at space, at Mars, at the hidden colonies, the clones, the rituals, the fallen, and then at Earth with its fields, its simple homes, its small churches filled with power, and I made my decision. I put my hand on the doorknob, I turned it, and I went through. The first thing I felt was the weight of my body, as if I had been floating for years and was suddenly being pulled back by an invisible force. The sound of hospital machines surrounded me, the cold light from the ceiling, and the sound of my mother crying, saying my name in prayer. "Travis, he's breathing." Oh my God, he's breathing. But I wasn't the same anymore. Jesus' words still echoed inside me like silent thunder. The vision of the Mars colony, the clones, the council, the prophecy, all were engraved in me with uncanny precision, and along with it, the seal. It burned on my chest, invisible to the doctor's eyes but more real than my own heartbeat. Over the next few days, I tried to remain silent. I told the doctors I didn't remember anything, but every time I kept quiet, the seal burned. At the hospital, I met a nurse who wore a cross around her neck. She asked me if I had seen anything on the other side, and when I said yes, she cried. It was my first seed. Back home, I turned on my computer and saw the codes I had written. They now throbbed like open wounds. I began deleting files, breaking contracts, and writing. Words that came not from my mind, but from my soul. I created a channel. I recorded a video with my cell phone, shaking, eyes to eye with the camera, and I told the truth. I said I was with Jesus. He said Mars wasn't a new beginning. It was a trap. He said that Elon was not the savior, but the servant of something he himself did not understand. He said the only salvation was not in the heavens above, but in eternal heaven, where he who brought me back reigns. The video went viral. Thousands watched it. Many scoffed. But some wrote that they had had the same dreams, the same visions, A former SpaceX employee sent me encrypted messages. A pastor at a small church in Alabama shared my video at a service, and a child in Poland drew the same door that I walked through. All this in 1 week. I don't know how far this will go, but I know the countdown has already begun. They think they can escape. They think they can colonize eternity. But there is a king coming back. And he will not just come to Earth. He will come for everything. Because distance doesn't matter, nor technology, nor billions. In the end, every knee will bow, on Earth, on Mars, and everywhere the soul breathes. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.